I started off doing a light sketch just to make sure that all the shaping was correct, and then using a putty rubber I got rid of the boldest lines, so you're just left with a really light pencil line around it. I used a putty rubber because it doesn't leave any of the really annoying shavings, and it also doesn't damage the paper. It might leave a little bit of a smudge, but that can be gotten rid of really easily. Yeah, most of the materials that I use include watercolour, ink and fine liners. Those are the main ones I use, but that will probably change throughout it as I'll experiment with different mediums. I then use the watercolour in a very loose manner. I covered the whole area in water first and then bring the colour into it so that it's completely unique and it's quite uncontrolled, so it actually gives the image a bit more texture. And then once that's done, I lay it to one side to dry for a little bit, allowing these clumps of water. I will dab bits off with a tissue, partly to speed up the drying process and to change the amounts of paint on different areas. I'll leave that to one side and I'll start the fine liner part of it as well, which is the more detailed section. So with this image I took the light tracing that I took at the very beginning and put that underneath another clean piece of paper and used the light box so that I could do the outline really nice and clear, and it wouldn't have any of the really irritating pencil lines underneath. So when I scan in that fine liner drawing, it's completely clean and you don't have any of the pencil underneath, because too many times you can rub out the pencil and completely mess up the piece of paper and that drawing is now entirely useless. So that does save that effort, and it also means it's just, in general, the image is cleaner, so when you overlay it you don't have little parts that will interfere with the image. Once the fine liner is done, which can take quite a long time sometimes, I get the painting again. If it hasn't dried too much, then what I tend to do is I bring in more watercolour and I'll tilt the paper so that it will have these drips and these lines, so it will have a slightly different texture to it. So you have the different layers of paint, which gives it a completely different feel if you just had it a completely flat layer. And rather than scanning it when it's dry, I will photograph it and then bring that into Photoshop, because it gives it a different look, because if it's still slightly damp you have the shine, and that kind of gives it a bit more life in a way, rather than it being completely flat, because the colours and the textures are completely different. Sometimes I'll scan, sometimes I'll just photograph, and I tend to compare the two and see which I like the most. I'll combine them together and it'll all be done on Photoshop. And that's the whole process.